If you're looking to transform a wall in your space to a green screen wall for photography or video purposes, then this video is for you. I'm going to show you how to accomplish that task using paint. I'll show you the products that I use, a little bit of technique, and also how to select the right wall in your space so that if you go through all this work, it's actually a usable green screen. It'd be a huge bummer if you did all this and then couldn't use it. Let's get into it, shall we? Yo, what's cracking, folks? Jeremy Vassar here. I am a professional painter of over 20 years, and I say that at the beginning of the video because I am not a professional cinematographer or lighting expert, but I have made over 100 YouTube videos for this channel, as well as a bunch of other production-related things. I'm like an intermediate on the video photography production stuff, so just take that for what you will, but I am super good at laying down paints, which is how I'm going to be transforming this space into a whole green screen area. So there are a lot of reasons to do green screens, and there's a lot of different fabrics and different things you can use. Painting is quite versatile because you can cover a huge area for not that much monies. We'll get into a little bit more of that as I kind of flow through the video, but we're just going to get cracking. And basically what I'm going to do throughout this video is I'm going to paint this kind of little wall over here and then this entire back wall behind me, and that's all going to transform into a green screen. The first thing we're going to do is prime the walls with a P4 primer, and I'll talk about that a little bit as we get into it. A couple things here. I'm using PrepRite Pro Block Primer in P4, which is just a gray primer. This is a little bit lighter than I wanted, but it still should work. Generally, you want to go a little bit darker than your wall color, and I'll show you that in a second. But we're going to start with this, and actually I will pour a pan as well. And I'll be cutting in with a 2.5 inch Corona Cortez. Got my little edging set up here, and we're gonna just cut in the top and the bottoms here. All right, so now I'm getting ready to roll the primer, and I'm going to use a 9-inch Pro Doozy FTP from Worcester, and this is the 1/2 inch nap variety. Works really well. I'm just be using an extension pole on that, and just moving from left to right, nice overlapping stripes, and making sure everything goes all nice and smooth. The primer is dry, so we are ready to rip some top coats. And you may have noticed that I didn't do a whole lot of prep in this area, and that is because these walls that I'm painting currently have been our test walls for about a year. So they've been painted and prepped and all kinds of stuff several times over, so they're quite smooth and ready to go. However, if you're doing this in your own house and space or studio or whatever, you do want to make sure the walls are prepped out somewhat. They don't need to be crazy smooth, because once we get to the point where this wall's painted green, when we light it up for video or photography production, we're going to be dumping a lot of light into it, which tends to hide a lot of the defects just from the way the camera's going to pick up that color. You're going to be keying it out anyway, so you don't need to go crazy, but I would recommend doing some decent prep out. Just make sure your walls are relatively smooth. On that note, if you would like to see how I prep and paint rooms professionally, you can check out our online community called Paint Your Home Now. In there, we've got our Interior Painting Fundamentals course, which has helped many of folk learn how to start painting. Also, there is pro painter support, so you can DM me directly and I'll get back to you within 24 hours. I usually get back to you way faster than that because I'm in there all the time, but you can send me pictures, ask me whatever you want. If you run into friction points that weren't covered in the course, feel free to reach out. It's pretty sweet. We got a bunch of other stuff going on there. New courses coming out all the time. If that is something you're interested in, check out the link in the description. And now back to this. So one thing I wanted to check with the interwebs is what color green ChatGPT thought would be good for a green screen, just because I'm interested. And I've done a number of these green walls for other clients. So anyway, this is what I asked. What's the best Sherwin-Williams color for a green screen? And ChatGPT said, for a green screen, the ideal color from Sherwin-Williams would be something close to chroma key green, which is bright, vivid green optimized for digital keying. The closest match is Sherwin-Williams 6922 Outrageous Green. And that is what I got, and it is quite outrageous. And then one of the reasons that you go with a green for green screens is because it's very easy to key out and basically mask out all of the green that shows up in the image. And that way you're just left with the subject that you are filming or photographing. It's much easier to do that than on a black, gray, or white background, although the AI is getting pretty good at that too. Now we're ready to lay down our top coats. I'm really hoping to only have to do 2. We'll find out. I'm going to be using, again, a 2.5-inch Corona Cortez, and then same roller setup as before with the primer, 1/2-inch Pro Doozy FTP. Two things important for the wall paint you pick for this type of accent wall, which is basically what a green screen is you want to use a premium level wall paint. That way you're not having to do a ton of coats. And the other one is to drop the sheen down from what you typically use in the rest of the room. I'm dropping down to a flat, and I'm using Emerald Flat from Sherwin-Williams, a really nice high quality wall paint. And the reason you want the sheen down is really, particularly with a green screen, you don't want light bouncing off too aggressively. You really want the green screen to absorb the light a little bit better so that you get even disbursement of the lighting. That's why you want to go with a flat sheen paint. All right, so super good news for me is that this covered amazingly well. I am going to do a second coat. It's going to look just like the first. I don't even think you're going to be able to tell really on the camera. But I think one of the reasons this paint is covering so well is one that I primed it with that gray primer beforehand. So the color shift it had to pull off wasn't too extreme. The other thing is that originally this color, which again is outrageous green, 6922, it calls for a yellow base, but my store manager, John, pumped it into the accent base in Emerald Flat, which works way better. The accent bases tend to just cover way better with a color that has a lot of colorant in it. So that's just something to be aware of if you do decide to go with this color setup. See if you can get your Sherwin-Williams store to do that as well, and kind of just punch around a little bit. Just be very wary of any color that is going to be in a yellow base. They can take a lot more effort to get them to how this looks. Just be aware. Coat number 2 is dry on our green screen wall, and I just want to show you guys a couple tips and tricks for just finishing up and a few things about lighting. But one thing is there's a couple things here like these outlets over here, which I'll show you in a second, and some other things that I don't want to paint or get paint on. And I'm just going to cover those in green painter's tape. This is frog tape that's 2-inch. So it's super easy. Run 2 strips. The green, even though it's a little darker, it's really not going to matter in post with the amount of light that we're going to throw on here. But that way, you don't have to paint over some things that you might not want to paint over. A couple considerations for when you are planning to do your green screen wall. You just want to make sure you have enough space to actually pull the effect off that you're going for. The more space you have in front of the wall, the better, because you're going to need space to actually light the wall evenly behind you. And then you also want enough space for you or whatever else to be the subject, so you don't get a bunch of green spilling over behind you. So the further away from the green wall you are, the better that is. And you also need space in front of your subject to have your key lights also light your subject evenly. So a couple things to consider that way, but I'm pretty stoked with how this turned out. If you found this video useful, you might also find this video over here useful, where I go over how to paint an accent wall. It's also very similar to what we just did. It's got some finer points you might find interesting. Until next time, y'all take it easy, work smart, and have a good one. Peace.